It is my sheer pleasure and privilege to welcome Manisha Girotra, who's the CEO of Moelis India. Manisha is somebody whom I've known for a while now. She's absolutely authentic. It's very rare for someone like me, being a hardcore journalist, to be in awe of someone. But I must make a disclaimer here, and very unabashedly, that I'm in awe of this woman. Because she has not only survived the investment banking industry, she's thriving at it. And the image of the investment banking industry is one which is singularly have been ruled by men. There are snake pits out there. The competition is so intense. It's a cutthroat world of deal making. It can be extremely intimidating. And for Manisha to have had such senior positions, be it at UBS and now founding Moelis India, it's incredible what she's done. I also remember a very profound personal piece of advice from Manisha sometime back when I was interviewing her as part of my past life at Mint. And she told me very candidly that, Shrija, have a second child. Don't make a mistake, which I did. So that sort of just goes to tell you the kind of, I would say, just the talk that we were having, that the entire progression clock of a woman's career is how it is just completely not aligned with the career progression. The one thing which I also like about Manisha is that in this stage of her career, she is double my experience. I'm 14 years experience, she's 30 years experience. And how she's busting the myth one at a time. She is now talking very openly about the biases which she had to go through as part of your investment banking journey. And I think that is incredible for someone like you, Manisha, who is holding such a senior position, to come out and talk about it. You spoke about the fact that you had to go to offices where there were no loos, to basically ironing shirt for your male colleague, to making coffees for them. I am sure every woman in this room must have gone through some experience of being mansplained, or having those unspoken glances in a room, in a board meeting, when people look up to each other. Oh, she's also talking, will she make sense? How did you even go through this, like seriously?
How I went through it, I don't know. I think kuch januni tha, to kar liya. But I think, jokes apart, I think what really helped me, and I've told you this, Shrija, is my upbringing. So I was born into a family where I was the favorite child. My brother was like a complete lesser child, and child of a lesser god. He's younger to me, and we joke, if you see our childhood pictures, most of them he's wearing my hand-me-down clothes, including my frocks, right? So he hates seeing those pictures. But I think the fact that I came armed into the workforce with so much love and confidence from especially my father, now that I see that all these biases all stem a lot from the way men treat women, right, at work. The fact that my father of that generation believed in me so much gave me that much needed wind beneath my wings. So when I went into offices and they didn't shake my hand, or if someone asked me to iron their trouser, I thought there was something wrong with these people. I didn't feel like, oh my God, this is awful, and this is how women are treated, and there's going to be no solution. I thought these are strange men, and that's fine, you just have to overcome this. But I think the fact that you could go home, share all these experiences, and be told, look, you're challenging patriarchal norms. When you're challenging norms, things are going to get shaken up, and everyone in this ecosystem, including the men, are getting a rude shock. So just keep pushing and don't get disheartened. I think helped me a lot. When I look at it in hindsight, I think if it weren't for that fact, and I'm married into a family where all the women are working, right? So I said to you, I love what your husband does, the way he's out there. It's great, because women need more cheerleaders at home. And I had that at home because my husband is born to a family where all the women work. So, all our surgeons all go away in the middle of the night to operate, or, whatever else is needed. So he knew no better, right? He thought this is the norm, everyone works. So I think all that helps. The ecosystem helps, and I think that's what helped in my case.
Manisha, I remember being on a panel, and I think you were also there. There was this 100 women in finance thing. And I think I was awarded for the progressing category, and you were in the achievers category. And there was these 4 very powerful women also in the financial services space. And I think Soumya made that point, that Shrija, we still have that self-doubt. The self-doubt is so persistent. Why are women doubting themselves so much? Why is it so easy for a male colleague, even though he's reporting to you, to shout at you and storm out of the room? Why does that even happen?
I think we have a huge imposter syndrome. There's no question, right? I remember when at 32, I became the CEO of UBS. I used to always question myself and say, what is with this organization? Why is it at 32 they've, made me the CEO? And, by the way, I didn't even have an MBA. I'm a master's in economics. So I was like, unsure. And that's because I think we are born to these perfectionist mums and, perfectionist homemakers who basically have taught us to be really perfect. If you see all of the colleges and schools grades, the people who are topping are the women, right? So actually we are just born to do everything perfectly. So even if there's a little bit of a thing that we're not good at, we are like, oh my God, I'm not right for this. So we suffer a huge imposter syndrome. While the same thing, you've read statistics after statistics, men having 20% of the capability will raise their hand for the next promotion and say, great, give it to us. We know 20% balance, 80% we'll do on the job, right? So it's a huge difference in the way we think and the men think, and that's not changing. I think, while all of us are very well educated today, parents are educating girls, they're empowering girls, I think where we're not changing is the fact that we're very hard on ourselves. We don't cut ourselves any slack, right? Because we're trained to be perfectionists, and, so we are like, only if we're really good at this, we'll do it. And I think men just think very differently. And that, Shrija, from my generation to your generation to the next generation is not changing. And I think that needs to change. We as women need to be kinder to ourselves. We need to cut ourselves some slack because, if somebody has chosen you for that job or that assignment, then they've seen something, right? The person who's, so, just believe in that and believe in the fact that you're a hardworking person and you'll get there. So, yeah, I think that for me is the biggest advice to women, that, cut yourself some slack, have some confidence, push yourself harder, show resilience, and, you'll beat all the men. And you'll shout at that man who shouted at you.
Absolutely. Shout at the man who shouted at you. Tell me one thing, Manisha, in terms of the highs and lows of your career. And I have tracked investment banking. And I have seen some of the deal makers out there. And there were men who were telling me about one that, okay, if this guy is in the room, I would just be silent. That is the aura of this one personality. I don't want to name that person. Being a woman entering the room, do you feel mansplained or sort of being uncomfortable? I mean, you've cracked such big deals. I mean, the self-doubt, does that really come to you, or how have you trained yourself to overcome that fact?
So look, in our business, there are larger-than-life personalities, right? Because you're sort of orchestrating deals between buyers and sellers. So, you tend to get not just us, even with lawyers, etc. They become larger-than-life personalities. So, yeah, it happens in every room. The issue is to not get intimidated. The issue is to stay close and loyal to your client, not to get worried that the other side, for example, has this really larger-than-life personality, who's advising that side. I have always said my loyalty is to my client. It doesn't matter. We may be the Goliath and the David and Goliath, but I'm loyal to my client. I'm well equipped. I know my business, and it's hard, but I think you just have to go in with a lot of self-confidence, and that's how I think. Even when I was much younger than a lot of the other the investment bankers on the other side, and we as a community respect age a lot. I wouldn't get intimidated by that. I didn't disrespect anyone, but I didn't get intimidated by the fact that someone else came with more years of experience than I was in age, right? Because I know my work, I'm loyal to my client, I'm loyal to my organization, and then your reputation builds from there, right? You do slowly and steadily, clients begin to appreciate what you're doing, word of mouth spreads. So it's hard. I'm simplifying it, guys. It's hard. It's harder said than done, because if the other side is larger than life personality, they will try and bully you. But look, don't get bullied. You're good at what you do, and believe in yourself and push hard, and the world will listen.
But tell me one thing, Manisha, all of us talk to ourselves mentally. Like, I have been the host and the guest of my mental chat show many times, right? Maybe some of us do. What are the questions that you ask yourself? How have you trained your mind? Okay, I got this. It's a $350 million deal or $1 billion deal. This guy's like swinging in. How do you maintain that calmness and confidence? There must be something you are telling yourself, right? It's years of experience, by the way, right?
So I would say evolve things like meditation, yoga and all, but I don't do any of that. I think I'm trying to do it now. My 20-year-old daughter tells me you need to, start meditating. So I think if all of you do that, some of you do that, that's great. Firstly, have a life outside of work. I think that's really important. Have a life and friends outside of work that don't give a damn about what you do. I have friends who have no idea. My closest friend called me the other day and said, Manisha, the ATM outside my home doesn't work. So, you really need to speak to HDFC. And I was like, I don't really do ATMs, but no, that's how what he thinks, banker, ATM, chalega, right? So it's great because, and he's a guitarist, so I don't understand anything about music, and we're both friends, right? So I think put perspective. When you go into that room, don't get intimidated that this is your whole life. It isn't, guys, it's a job, right? After that, there is a life outside, there's a personal life. And most important, what that does is having a personal life outside is that you realize that when you go into that boardroom, it's not personal. Everyone's doing what's good for their job. Some people may have larger egos, larger personalities. That's fine. That's all part of the course. But it's not personal. We're all doing a job, and don't get intimidated and don't get upset because we're all doing what we are paid for, And I think what's helped me a lot is the fact that I have a personal life. I have a teenage daughter, guys. If any of you have teenage daughters, that's the best way to keep you in line, right? Every morning you get yelled at for something and how you're not right. So I think the fact that I have a family, I have a personal life, I have friends, that sort of keep me grounded, helped me a lot. And I think, as you said, of course you have conversations in your mind when you go in, it's like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to be able to pull this off? But I think their experience helps. Initially you do have those conversations, you feel intimidated, but I think over time you get better at it, right? Like everything else, it becomes a muscle memory and you get better at it and you get more confident at it.
But Manisha, for some of us, at least I'll talk about myself or some of the other women, we attach a lot of our self-image with how we are respected at work or how we are treated at work. Internal validation is the external validation. Some of us perhaps live for the applause, maybe in the media world, right? The validation matters. For some women, or I know how much they attach their personal success importance to the work life. So I think it's easier said than done to say that if your work life is not going well, you can be happy. One feeds into the other. And which is why you have such work-related depression and anxiety issues, right? When the COVID happened, there was recession everywhere. But there was also a phenomenon called she-cession, because the women suffered the most in terms of, because the unemployment when it happened, it actually affected women more than the men, right? And now with this entire onslaught of AI coming in front of us, where the jobs will be going, or we have what you may, in terms of upskilling, will not be able to catch up with AI. Again, the worst recipients will be women, the way I see it.
Look, I think you're right. When I say that, like, if you have a personal life, etc., it helps you. I think it helps you soften the blow. Of course, all of us who are passionate about our work, I'm not saying it's just when you go home, everything's going to be okay and you're going to forget work. Of course, we carry our stresses. We are humans, We can't just switch off. I think what it does, it softens the blow. It puts things in perspective that, look, maybe things for the moment are not going well at work, but there are other things that are going well for me. So that's why it's important, have a hobby, have something that keeps you going, because that's really important. Otherwise you just, as you said, Shreya, become so unidimensionally attached to your job that it overtakes your existence. And I've had that experience too in my life, So I think it's really important. And as you said, we are hard on ourselves, we are multitaskers, so, we tend to take on a lot, and somewhere trying to be that perfect homemaker, perfect at work, perfect friend, perfect mom, you tend to sort of, something gives. And a lot of times it's the mental health for women. So not at all discounting what you're saying. I'm just trying to say, put things in perspective, guys. Try and do other things so that, it softens the blow. AI is a black box. We don't know who's. My view is it's going to take the guys' jobs faster than women because we are multitaskers. We are smart. These guys. My husband can do only one thing at a time. If you tell him two things, he's like, oh, slow down. Like, what do you mean slow down? It's two things. So my view, of course, AI is going to be a threat. But I think what Shrija, people lose is you lose jobs. You don't lose careers because I think especially all the young people here, they learn to live with disruption. I haven't learned to live with disruption. When I joined banking, if you knew your 6 sectors, cement, steel, oil and gas, that's it. You knew it, you sailed through. You guys, the younger people, you're like every 2 years, the sector's not left which you are working in. So you guys, I think, are far more used to it and will do a much better job, male or female, in surviving all these disruptions than my generation will, because we were just not taught. We are not programmed right. You guys are like, born to technology, right? I have to learn most of my tech from my daughter when she's in a good mood. So
she's in the good mood.
So I would say, don't worry about AI. Yeah, some jobs will lose, but I don't think, if you're good, if you're open to learn, the most important thing today is that you have to be open to learning, right? You must be open to reskilling and learning. There's no shame in learning from the younger people, from your peers, from your seniors, whatever it is, but just keep upskilling yourself, because your generation, and I hate to sound sound so ageist, but your generation will face a lot of disruption, which my generation was lucky not to face. And I think the good news is you're all programmed to it, right? You're born to it. You're born to it.
Talking about women entrepreneurs, which is the crux of the conversation here, and we're talking in the first panel also that the biases exist, both from the VCs and the societal perspective at large. The questioning changes. With the male founders, the tonality is more promotional. With the female founders, it's more about preventative, talking about things which are avoiding the loss, right? With the male founder, okay, what really is the business model? With the female founder, where will I fund you and not your next competition? What would be your experience in dealing with female entrepreneurs versus a male entrepreneur in the area of deal making? For instance, selling a company.
So look, I think the female entrepreneurs are as smart, as focused on their business as the male entrepreneurs. They're not there to just, we are the necessary female there. They're ambitious, they're hungry, they want to grow their business. I think where you said, Shrija, the biggest problem is the unconscious biases in this boys' club, right? You tend to basically fund entrepreneurs who are men. You tend to hang around with individuals who are men. You want to go out for that beer at 4 p.m. with the male colleague because, you can bond over that cricket match, etc. Women typically want to go home in the evenings. So I think for me, whether in the entrepreneurial world, professional world, what is hurting women today the most is unconscious biases. The conscious biases people are trying to correct, right? In organizations, work from home, flexi hours, creches. The VC, that one VC is doing that one tick to get that female entrepreneur. So the conscious biases are reducing. What is not reducing is the unconscious biases, and which is why I say it's really important to have men as part of the solution too. They're part of the problem, right? We need to make them part of the solution too. They are the one. You all are ambitious. You're here. You're out here with that horrible traffic, but you want to make that difference to your lives. You want to be the hero of your lives. Now you need the men to come out and understand that you're an empowered woman. You're going to, he needs to learn how to deal with you. So I think that's where the most change needs to happen, whether it's organizations, whether it's, education institutions. The unconscious bias in the male, which stems from the patriarchy at home, needs to change for women to come out and power through, because I think that's really hurting the women. You come back from maternity leave, you don't get that level that your male colleague has got. You feel bad, right? I mean, somebody's a peer, now they're 2 years senior to you. You have paternity leaves, but the male colleague will not take it because at that evening beer drink he'll be made fun of, that tu to ghar ja raha hai apne bacche ko sambhalne, right? So he feels bad, right? You have to destigmatize all these things. The unconscious biases have to be destigmatized. It has to be normalized, right? I was on the board of this French company, and in the middle of it, this was a while ago, and it's an equal number of women and men. And in the middle of it, one of my women board members, she's Norwegian, got up and said, I need to nurse my kid. So I was like, where's the kid? She's like, my husband's just bringing him to the room next door, right? So that's how normal it was for them to do these things. The husband was bringing the baby, she'd nurse the baby, and they'd go back, and nobody even batted an eyelid. She did her job and she came back, right? We need to get to that level of evolution, right? We need to stop judging women, and more importantly, men who are seen as allies to women as somebody who are weak and not really cool guys, right? You're not one of the guys if you're being an ally to the woman. No, you're great if you're being an ally to the woman. Celebrate that about men, right? That they're being an ally. And I think then things will change.
That's very well put, which is why we call it the Equality Summit and not a women entrepreneurship conclave, right? It has to coexist. You can't have a women's world as you can have man's world, right? Both have to sort of coexist. The face of the leadership has to change. The face of the wealth is changing. More and more women are becoming wealth creators. There was a recent study which said that by 2030, Asian women will actually surpass the highest amount of wealth creation. I want to understand from you that the wealth creation is happening, but the husband is managing the money. I am bringing money to the room, but the husband is managing the money. There are financial red flags in the relationship. The biggest is having a joint banking account. So do you think that it's about time that if we have to reach 2030, where the entire motto is power, parity, purpose for wealth creation, these conversations have to become more mainstream? It's just not enough to earn the money. You got to secure your financial future. Because the reality is that if you own your money, you own your future.
I think you gave the answer in the question. It's the topic I'm most passionate about. You only get a seat at the table when you have some assets or financial means on your name, right? You can't go in the family and have a discussion on, oh, let's send my daughter to the US to study if there are no assets or means in your name. And it's even more compounded because, as you said, Shrija, the wealth is being earned by the women. So it's devastating that we are still carrying the patriarchal norm that, if you remember in the time of our grandmothers, etc., it was caregiving is the woman's responsibility, but the man must take care of the money because that's how you're looked after as a woman, right? That I'm looked after by the men in my family. So that's how cleverly it was structured by the patriarchy, that the assets automatically went to the male hands because that way you kept control on the women. She had no say in the financial assets or the say, and hence didn't have a seat at the table. So that was the component. And that's what's still stemming into our lives, right? That we still think that managing money is too complex. All these financial terms are so complex. And we can't, and this comes from people who are doctors. I mean, when I go into a doctor's room, I don't understand a word of what they're saying to me on what are the problems with me, right? So she'll say so many terminologies that I'm like, can you just tell me, am I going to live or not? That's all I want. And so there is this doctor who is so well educated. Medicine is such a hard profession, and this is one of my closest friends, by the way. And when I tell her that you need to manage your own money, she's like, that's too difficult. Rahul will do it. No, Rahul is just, he's a wealth manager, so that's fine, he's a wealth manager, you can take your advice, but you must have control of your money because that's how you have control of your destiny. If you want to be the hero of your life, you don't want to be pushed around, you must understand these terms. There's no reason to have a block, right? I mean, that's all it is about. It's all about the fact that every woman I speak to says it's too complicated. Of course, everything is complicated. Even when our kids learn to cycle, that's complicated too, right? They fall 20 times. That's why I tell all my women colleagues, please start small. Don't start big. Don't say, I want to now manage the entire wealth of the money. Start small. You will make some mistakes. Of course, I made a lot of mistakes. I lost a lot of money, but that's fine. A lot of money of the amount I invested. Start small. By the way, your husbands or your fathers will lose an equal amount of money. They just don't tell you. They'll tell you about that 10x that they made, at the dinner table. But they won't tell you about the place where they've lost the capital, right? And they do. Everyone does. Not that this, and anyone who's investing will, because things go wrong. We talked about it, business models get disrupted. So you can lose your capital because of no fault of anyone, but the business model got disrupted. So my advice is, all of the talk that we do is irrelevant unless we don't get a control on the financial means. You absolutely said it. And I think as women, that is the first thing we should prioritize over everything else. And that's how you look after. And by the way, as you said, not just wealth, all these bank accounts, etc., that have been opened. You've seen wherever the money's gone to the woman, she's the one who's invested more in the education, the health. So it's actually good economics for the country too. So yeah, I mean, I can go on about this. It's something I'm passionate about.
Absolutely. I think a lot of $1 billion will be added in this country if women actually contribute equally as MSME entrepreneurs and wealth managers. And I think that the basic sort of equation really is that there are three things happening with women. They tend to live longer. Number one. But second, just because of patriarchal norm, they tend to earn much lesser than men. All the more reason to manage your money, much sort of starting. And the third thing is that most of us, by the time you're 35 or 36, you leave all the workforce. I'm talking about the normal scenario, right? So I think all the more compelling reasons to manage your own money. But Manisha, you have been very candid in this entire conversation. Tell me one sort of point of time in your career when you felt really low, when you felt that perhaps you were judged because of your gender and not because of your competence?
I feel low every day. I lose a deal, I feel low. It's like, I'm human. I feel happy when I win. I feel, mine is a business where you're only as good as your next transaction. So, you're not even good as your last deal because that's done. That's in the bag. So it is, as I always say, it's a gladiator sport. It's not for the weak-hearted. But so that's more of, But yeah, I think initial years, so two parts of my life that I felt very challenged, I won't say like depressed, was initially when I wasn't taken seriously, when I would go into rooms and boardrooms and nobody would make eye contact with me, nobody would shake my hand. I would be speaking like I'm speaking to you, but you would be looking at the man sitting next to me. So that's very disheartening because, as I said, if it weren't for my dad's support at that point, I probably would have given up because, it's like, what's going on? Am I not good enough? Am I saying the wrong things as a youngster? You feel. The second thing was, when you have your child, right? That's really, because, that really challenges you in every which way. And the society judges you first as a caregiver. So I remember going into a parent-teacher meeting and the teacher saying, oh my God, when my daughter was 8, and she said, oh my God, we finally see you. And I was like, I've been for every parent-teacher meeting but other than one, right? But that's how much society judges you. So I think you tend to then feel very hard on yourself that am I doing the right thing? The guilt takes over. I'm a guilty person and I feel terrible because I was born to a mom who's like perfect and prioritize us over everyone. So I think that was very challenging for me. The biological clock clashing with the fact that I just become CEO of UBS was hard. And so, but then look, as I say to everyone, I think it works out fine. And all of you should also, if you have young kids, keep plugging through because today my biggest supporter is my daughter. Every time I tell her, I think I'm done, I think I've done well. She's like, what do you mean? Just go back to work, right? So she feels proud. And she talks about her career. She's not talking about boyfriends, or at least she's not talking to me about boyfriends or about marriage. She's talking about what she has to do with her life. And I feel proud because she wants to take ownership for her life, for her family. The other day, she was telling my husband that you need to explain to me where you're investing, right? Because I need to learn. And I was like, great, right? And I didn't tell her. She did it on her own. So I think it works out. Kids learn. Kids, at that point when you're leaving your child when she has fever or, she has that important parent-teacher meeting or exam the next day, you'll feel bad. But in the long run, I think it works out well. And I think it works out well for the boys too. Let them see that their mothers worked hard through the life, were well respected, and, they'll be better husbands and partners. So I think for both kids, both gender kids, it's very important to see a working mom.
Tell me one thing, Manisha, it's been like 30 years, incredible work life that you've had, incredible journey in investment banking. What is propelling you to come out now for you to talk about your biases? You think it's sort of very, very informative for the younger self. Perhaps that is advice which you did not get when you were in your 20s.
Yeah, I think, look, when I started, there were no role models, there were no mentors. You couldn't go to, there wasn't even HR you could go to and complain if you were objectified and trivialized. And now in hindsight, I feel there are certain things where I should have drawn the line. I should have said, no, this is not acceptable. You can't give me your trouser to iron or whatever, even other things, right? So, but I didn't know enough. I didn't have enough support to have that. And I think if you can support women through those few difficult phases and share your experiences, I think women can come out stronger. And I just love women at work. I think every woman in my organization is smarter than any male. And I say this over 32 years, right? You support the women, they're more loyal, they're fiercely loyal, they really go for the business, they're hungry like you are, Shrija. So I think support women at home and at work, and it's good economics for the country, but more, we hold up half the sky. It's time we own half the world. What are we waiting for, right?
Absolutely, stand and we own half the world. And I think if this country has to become a 5 trillion economy, there's no way that we can ignore the half cohort, right? I mean, there's absolutely no way. My last question to you, and I think it's been such a fascinating conversation with you, Manisha, and because I've known you for a while, do you know what is my first impression of you?
Aggressive?
No, it is not.
That's what most people say.
It is not. I think I was at VC Circle, and I think I'd come to interview you. And you were wearing this amazingly beautiful white dress. You were entering 4 seasons, and you were hugging every guy and woman out there. Hey, hey, hey. And I was like, okay, this is the woman who is the face of investment banking in the country, who is confident and self-assured. And there are moments where we all sort of talk to ourselves and judge ourselves and have these bouts of self-doubt. The idea is to come out of it. But I find it extremely difficult. My personal experience really has been that it's not easy to come out of it, especially when you are being judged because of your gender than competence. It has happened with we are working in newsrooms, can be extremely challenging. It is clash of ideas. And somebody, okay, she is 31, she's talking to me, I'm 55-year-old. Sometimes experience can be a baggage. And do you think, how can organizations understand that?
So I think organizations need to play a really important role because of all the things we discussed, right? You said AI, the disruption that's happening. Frankly, I think I learn a lot from the younger people, And what's happened is that our generation of the 55-year-olds is basically used to the way that, the older generations worked, which is that leadership comes with seniority and with experience. Of course, experience is important. But what's really important is to combine it with the energy and the new ideas and the refreshing ideas that the young are bringing. And that can only happen if the organization respects it, right? Which are the organizations which are flourishing, which are doing well in this new age, which are not doing exactly what you said, which are saying, irrespective of gender, saying it doesn't matter when you come into the room, you're all equal. I don't come with the title of MD, you don't come with the title of analyst. We sit on a round table, you're not evaluated at the end of the year for not speaking up to your seniors, right? Or against your seniors. You're evaluated on the basis of what the outcome of that transaction is. And and a lot of organizations are doing that. And those are the organizations which are surviving. Organizations like the ones you said, well, actually, I am genuinely convinced will die. Because you're not listening to new ideas. And if you're not open to new ideas, in today's world, you cannot exist. It's not the old India, the closed economy where you got licenses and ek license mil gaya to business ho gaya. It's very competitive, it's very global. There's an Uber out there competing with an Ola, right? So you need to be basically on top of your game. And you're only going to be top of the game when you're going to listen to the youth, because we are a young country. We're not an old country, right? And you guys are now the guys who are going to take this country to the next level. You are the new pockets of the country. If we don't listen to you, then it's really our demise.
Tell me one thing, this entire advice of go for women, go fundraise like a man, do you agree with it?
Well, go fundraise like you. What go fundraise like a man? Men are they're too. They don't listen. They talk too much. They come into a pitch. They're perpetually talking. I think women are good. They listen. They're empathetic. Yesterday I was at a panel and one of the panelists started coughing, and the other panelist sitting next to her was a woman, and the other side was a man. The girl just poured her a glass of water and gave it to her. The guy was like too busy talking and giving his. So I would say go with your authentic self, and if you lose a few guys, they don't come to you to give the money, too bad, it's their loss. So don't change yourself for anyone, be yourself, no matter what.
That is so fantastic. And I think my last question to you is that when Indira Nooyi said that women can't have it all, I might be the CEO of Pepsi, but when I enter the room, I have to leave the crown in the garage and then enter. I'm the mother, I am the daughter-in-law, and the expectations to fulfill. Do you think that imagery of women needs to change?
But Sridhar, what is all? When even if you're a man, ask your husband, if you enter the corporate world, there are certain sacrifices we all make, right? If you're a man too, can you go Thursday afternoon skiing with your kid to Switzerland? You can't, right? You have to make certain sacrifices. Of course, as a woman, you probably have to make a lot more, which is what Indira meant, that But I quite love my role as a mum, and the fact that I'm treated as a nobody at home is quite nice, right? It's like it puts things in perspective. It dulls the blows that you talked about, right? When in the corporate world, we all have a certain, or in the entrepreneurial world, we all have a span of life, right? Whatever goes up, comes down, right? And when it comes down, I think it softens the blow, because you've been beaten up at home so many times anyways. So you're like, oh, one more blow, fine. No, I say that, but my view is that if you've signed up to being you can be a soul ranger, and I respect that. But if you signed up to be a homemaker, a wife, a mom, a daughter-in-law, and a career woman, then those roles require different aspects. If your mother-in-law is unwell, you can't say, mom, you need to wait. I'm just signing a $5 billion transaction. No, she has health issues. So yeah, it's tough. I'm not glorifying multitasking. I know multitasking is very challenging for women, and I strongly believe, I was talking to Alka, and I strongly believe that you should have me time, give yourself time. But yeah, I think I have my all, right? So that's what my take on this is.
Wow, you have your my all. That is a fantastic way to conclude this conversation. Before I get into some bit of rapid fire with Manisha, I want questions for it. It's been such an enlightening conversation.
Please give me questions. I can't bear these rapid fire. Srija's rapid fires are so stressful. She asks these things, I'm like, oh. I'm a slow investment banker. I need to analyze things before
You're hardly slow, man.
Yeah, she's done this to me before, so please, whatever question I'll take.
I see so many hands up, yes.
Yeah. Okay, hi Manisha. I love this talk, the energy and the way you said things, I love it. Arjun, think about things that way. And also at work sometimes when I'm right now, just started out working and with colleagues, they have the same response. And the age gap between these two people, like a 16-year-old and a 22-year-old working right beside me, it's the same thing. People don't want to invest energy, and that's not people, that's actually the men that I am right now dealing in life with. So, of course, your take on that. Thank you.
So the first question, is an old-fashioned answer, that when you start, as you said, at a time when you're young and you're just hungry to learn, take any job. So my first job, because I was a woman and people didn't think I would be a serious investment banker, and those were not the days of computers, we were just starting with computers. I had to go and basically take inventory of all the branches in Grindlay. So I had to go and, for example, if you're sitting here, I had to say, this is chair number 84/5/branch number this. And I came back damn offended. I was like, I am a gold medalist. I can't be doing this. And my father said to me, no, it's good, because this way you learn all parts of the business, right? So you'll be good at it. So you may feel upset at that point that here I am, I've got this nice Maruti dinky car, but all I have to do is to go in the office and stick this. But I think it held me well. So I think leave your ego at home, right? Leave your crown at home, come and do whatever it takes because it'll hold you well. It may not hold you well at that point, you may not feel that great, but eventually you'll say, I knew this person, and that's why I could counter that person who's much older to me when he asked me that question, right? So that's the old-fashioned advice, but that advice holds. On your brother, these men are slow. You have to keep beating them. My husband, I still have to beat him, and my daughter still beats him and says, you can't say these things, and So yeah, I think I make a joke, but the point is that the norms are so set in our minds, from childhood, from the time you're born. You said it, right? You said, I'm the older sister, I have to take charge. So you've already got that sense of responsibility. He's got this thing that, I'm going to be well taken care of, right? So I think it's so set that it's going to take all of us a long time to basically change. You're making a pivotal change in history, your generation, right? So it's going to take all your time. We did it, but we did it in a much lesser way. You guys are wanting equality, right? And when you want equality, we said, fine, let us work, let us do a little bit, we're very happy. You are like, no, I want equality, I want equality at work and at home. You want to do that? That's going to be tough. So just brace yourself for the ride, both at home and at work, and keep pushing, because somewhere it'll register. Hopefully.
Okay. Yeah, there's a question there, yes.
Hi, Manisha. Good to hear you again. As you rightly said, somewhere at home, we don't ask enough. Patriarchy starts from home. The women who are so vocal at the workplace, demanding equality, and we are getting there, right? How much are we really doing to really change things at home ourselves? The very same women, I'm not talking about those who are anyway not doing the same at workplace, but those who are vocal enough at home and in the workplace, how much are we really changing at home, and what would your advice be for such women?
That's a very good point. That is really the root cause of the problem, and the problem is not just us, it's just that as women, we become the biggest torchbearers of patriarchy, right? A lot of the women who come to me and say, I'm quitting because my mom-in-law said that I should quit. And why did your mom-in-law say? Because the husband's incomes become good, and all is well, and yours was not seen as a career, yours was just seen as a job to supplement the family income, and now that it's good, you need to go back and take up your primary responsibilities. So I think we as women have to have collective responsibility and individual responsibility. It's not going to change unless you don't change the home, unless her brother at home doesn't listen to this whole talk on feminism. He's going to carry it into work, no matter how many HR policies you have, etc., how many ally codes you have, etc. It's very difficult unless you change the mindset at home. And that's what I say to women, that look, as hard as it is, you have to make the same demands at home, right? You have to say, I'm tired. I remember I pride myself in multitasking, but multitasking has taken a toll on my health. And at some point I need to say, no, I can't do this, right? I can't, after a full day at work, look glamorous and go out for a family dinner. I can't. I need to crawl into my bed and feel bad because I lost that deal, right? So, we don't do enough of that because we are programmed to be these perfect homemakers and multitaskers. So, as I said, cut ourselves some slack and ask for your rights at home. Most important.
Yeah, Rahul?
Hi, Manisha. First of all, pleasure to meet a Stephanian and a DSC senior. So, Manisha, you have had such an incredible, celebrated career leading businesses. We are hearing some interesting things about dealing with brothers, husbands. Once the world once used to be believed to be matriarchy. The way it moved to patriarchy was cruel, and we all continue to see what's the real world thing. UNDP 2023 report was slap on the face of everybody who thought we have done enough. But while we are talking about women empowerment, how do we save ourselves from a world where men start feeling threatened? And essentially, we don't want to create another problem while solving a problem. So as a business leader, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's actually a very good question, because I think that's really what it is. When you're challenging the norms, men do feel threatened. It's a very relevant point. And that's why, as I said, you need allies in organizations, you need cheerleaders, and you need to make men and women part of the problem. You can't have women, HR having these women courses where you're preaching to the women, etc., and the men are feeling challenged and saying, oh my God. It's the same thing like both seats, right? A lot of men push back and say, why are women being given that quota? She should only come up on meritocracy. The reason we are doing it is because we're trying to challenge the norms. So I think you raise a very valid point, which is that how do you get men to work as allies, right? We're not saying let's pivot from patriarchy to matriarchy where men become the lesser being. We are saying we want an equal world, right? In that equal world, everyone has an equal say. And I think their organizations, homes, everyone has to play a part to say that, look, women are being pushed not because maybe it's good economics. A lot of companies today, like consumer companies, the customer is a woman, right? So having women in the workforce is actually helping that organization be a better customer-facing company. So demonstrate the economics of why it's important to have women and men at work. Whether it's a female entrepreneur, it's important to show that why is she getting the funding, whatever be the reason. I think build that ecosystem and that comfort level with men at work, and then at home, I think we all need to change that too. It's not about beating the men up at all. It's about saying. It's okay, we can beat them, but. Look, I'm the one who's got beaten up, so.
So I think we'll just sort of wrap it up very quickly. I think we can just go on and on with such a delightful conversation with you, Manisha. I still see some hands up. I can just take one more question. I think that gentleman has...
Srija, I want to ask her one question. And Manisha, this is a very radical question, might be slightly ahead of its time. So, one day I was telling Srija that if you earn enough to take care of the savings and the investments, I'm happy to stay at home, right? Take care of the family. My question to you is the society ready, right? Maybe it's too far ahead in time, 50, 100 years in the future, that women are working, men are not, right? I mean, we have grown up seeing movies where, Hindi mein kehte hain na, acha ye to biwi ke paise ka kha raha hai. Do you think the society will ever be ready for that kind of a scenario? Simple question.
No, it's a brilliant question. It actually stems from what he asked too, right? That I think, and what you mentioned earlier is that we women only become the torchbearers of this patriarchy, right? I remember when my daughter was younger and she was 4 years old, and she, my husband would take her to a birthday party. The number of women who came and told him, "You're such a great dad. That's why Manisha is able to work because, you're out here at the birthday party. He's eating candy floss and chocolate cake. What is so hard about?" And looking at pretty moms. I don't think any of this is hard. So I think we need to stop basically. Celebrating men who are doing that a little bit, and B, you're absolutely right, telling men who are sitting at home and bringing up that, tum biwi ke paise khate ho. So I think that needs to change, and I salute men as evolved as you who say that, because I know it takes a lot to say that because the society is judging you otherwise. So I live in that hope too, that it'll be normal, right? Like just some women who give up their careers because, they don't want to work, and that's more, so it's fine. We all don't need to work. Similarly, if there are men like you who want to be at home and look after the kids, there are enough women and men out there to celebrate people like you. So as I told you, I'm already a fan of yours. So.
Okay, I think I have to ask you this. The rapid fire question, okay, which I asked Latika and everybody. Name the most overhyped startup in the era of unicorn obsession, according to you. And you have seen many up close.
What, in India, globally?
India.
Globally, I would say Facebook, because I'm not a fan of any social media, so I would say that. India, I don't know. I mean, at this moment, and I'm not hedging, the model is getting challenged a lot, right? So, you need to see 10 years of any company to say which is good, which is bad. And I think we're too early a stage to say this one's fabulous. As you saw in some of the fiascos that are happening now, I think it's too early to celebrate anyone and too early to beat up so much, because we had this funding winter, and B, just the way the business models are changing.
You dodged that question, and so well. You didn't answer that. You didn't name any startup because you want to put your job on the line. I know that.
I still have a job, right?
Okay, I remember asking this to Renuka once, and she was telling me that Srija, corporate governance, and this was against the fiasco of what happened to VG Siddhartha, that Srija, we can have checks and balances in place, but if somebody is corrupt at heart, no matter what you do, you can't beat that. This entire question and narrative building about corporate governance, and especially falling through the cracks for startups, how are you seeing this? I mean, do you think, where does it really stop? Because one after the other, those we thought were too big to fail are actually crumbling.
So I think, Chicha, what happened was, And then this is not for India. In the last 3-4 years, especially during the lockdown, we had a lot of frothy money, right? The Fed was printing money and basically there was just too much capital and there was too much pressure to deploy it. So mistakes did get made. I don't agree that, no matter how much the corporate governance, things will happen. Yeah, I mean, there will be some outliers where this happens, but I think what's happened in the last 10, 15 years, and you cover the financial services world and the corporate world, is that good corporate governance has got so disproportionately rewarded that by investors and by the markets, that the inclination of most companies is to adhere to it. Because short term, yeah, you can raise the money for 2 years and run off. But I think the markets are not just focusing so much on corporate governance, and will do so increasingly more because of the fiascos that have happened, that you will be compelled even as an early stage investor to adhere to that to basically just survive. It will become an issue of survival now, is what I strongly believe and what I strongly see now.
So the onus lies on both the investor and the investee. The investor just can't say, okay, this founder is corrupt, right?
People were giving money on WhatsApp term sheets, right? I mean, so there is no tears for this Shivani here. You can please ask her this. She's the next.
I will definitely.
Yeah,
yes.
you could beat her up on this, on what she was doing.
No, I think she has a good portfolio going, so I'll spare her that.
Beat up her fellow colleagues.
Okay, I would not sort of ask you anything which sort of eats into your line, eats into your job, but if you were to go on lunch with a female leader, who would that really be?
Michelle Obama, I love her. I just totally love her.
And a male guy, besides your husband, whom you fell in
I don't
love
want
with,
to go with my
whom you
husband
fell in
at all
love with
for
during your
lunch,
college
yeah.
days. Do we know that she married her teacher?
No. This sounds terrible now. Guys, I didn't marry my teacher. We weren't having a little affair while my mother was at work. So I married a colleague who, when I joined the world of banking, I didn't know enough about banking, and because I was actually wanting to go to a PhD, and he basically taught me some things about finance and loves this story. So that's why this story stays. The guy probably taught me like 10 words, right? So but it's okay, let him be happy.
Thank you so much, Manisha. It was incredible having you. Thank you so much for your time and energy to this.